Bang. What's going on? Welcome. It is Wednesday. It's around 11 o'clock. I'm back. I know. We've been out on all the trade shows. I've been going to ShutterFest, NAB, WPPI, all this stuff. So we're missing a bunch of episodes, but we are here. This is 42 West 18th Street, Adorama. This is not a green screen. That would be good if I muted that, right? Every time I forget one thing. If that's the one thing, I'm okay. I got Ben Rutkowski with me today. We're going to get into who this guy is. It's going to be a list of stuff, trust me. But I really want to give a really quick shout out to Sony for sponsoring this. You know Sony. It's like been in your life your whole life. You've been using a lot of Sony to do some really off-the-wall stuff, immersive cinematography. Yep. I mean, you're talking about the FX3, FX30. You got the FX9, which is on its discontinued list, but you have the Burano, which I think we're going to talk a lot about on this one. You have a lot of options when it comes to cinematography, but also getting started, the A6000 series, the A7S III. You've got the A9 III is even good for a lot of video with the global shutter. So check out the link down below for all the Sony stuff. You know what's up with that. And I also want to give a shout out to Gotham Roasters for hooking us up. Cheers, mate.
Thank you.
What'd you get?
Cold brew.
Cold brew.
Yeah.
Black cold brew. That's what's up. That's what's up. That's a set guy right there. That's what's up.
Live on it.
If you want, go check them out on 19th Street. They are one block up from Adorama. So if you're coming here to a class, go over there, say what's up, tell them Adorama sent you, come hang out with your coffee. We just had Tony Gael here last night doing portraits with speedlights. You can check that out on the Adorama Events channel. And today, if you're coming around from noon after we pack this up, you can get free prints from a giant HP printer in store. So come by with your memory cards, get some free prints, come hang out, 42 West 18th Street. But go say what's up to Gotham first, all right? Cool. Let's get into who this guy is, because he didn't show up to hear me talk about coffee, although this is Coffee with Creators. So, Ben, we've just met.
Yeah.
But I got to tell you, the list of stuff that you have going on here is nuts. I mean, first of all, he's a cinematographer, but I got a list that you've done campaigns for Amazon Prime, Squarespace, Unilever, which is massive, Adidas, LG, Samsonite. I mean, the list is just going on and on and on. You collaborated with Spike Lee, Ronaldo Marcus Green, Warren Fu, I mean, Lance Oppenheim. I mean, the list of names, I mean, I got to get a broom to pick up all these names we're dropping here. And you've also been up for a lot of awards from Kodak Ari, South by Southwest, Tribeca Film Festival. I mean, it's insane. And then the nice cherry on top, you're giving back because you're also an educator. You're an adjunct professor right here at NYU Tisch, which is awesome. And I think that speaks volumes to where you're at, because you've done so much and you're just like, we've got to keep this industry going. And that's what we've been doing here with the event space, the channel. Ben, welcome.
Thank you for having me, Seth. Yeah.
This is wild, man. First of all, you've been pretty hectic for a while, but how many years do you actually have in this industry? Because you're a New York native. We're both New York natives.
Yeah.
We got to give it up.
Yeah. Marine Park, right?
Marine Park, Kings Plaza.
Yeah. And I grew up down in Stuyvesant Town on the other end of 18th Street. But yeah, no, to put a number on how long I've been working, I went to NYU for grad school in 2010, and from that point, I was working concurrently to studying. So I guess you could say I've been shooting professionally since 2010. I officially left that program in 2015. So I think that's also a sort of a marker for how long I've been professionally working. So let's say 10 years since 2015.
And it takes a long time just to say you're working, right? It's not just like, hey, I'm going to go apply for a job as a cinematographer. You've got to build your look, your proof of concepts. You've got to get people to believe in it, because it's never just you. You got to shoot, right?
You got to shoot a lot of short films for free for, other students. And you definitely need people to believe in you at some point to get larger jobs. But yeah.
I also think cinematographers, basically DP, like you can go shoot for yourself and you could have long-term projects forever. You can go meet somebody that's like, hey, I need someone that can do this. Where do you draw the line on not getting burned out? Is it something like you always have that project that you want to do on the back burner going on forever? Or do you like, no, I got to pay the rent. Let's just keep getting to the next job.
Yeah, no. Paying the rent is super important. I have a 2.5-year-old son, and everything is getting more expensive for everybody. But yeah, I think where I try to find that line that you're talking about is certainly taking jobs to make a living, but also to be involved in projects long term that I feel passionately about, whether that's because I like the people that I'm working with or the subject's important to me. So, I do shoot a lot of documentary at this point, and those are the projects that sort of really get me going. But then on the other side of things, like, next week's Met Gala, there's a lot of work around this time of year in New York for that type of thing. And it's a combo for sure.
I think being in New York, we kind of take that for granted sometimes, that like that work is even here.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So what would you say to someone that's not in a place where they're kicking rocks, but they want to kick rocks? Like where do you go if you're somewhere that there isn't a Met Gala and you're looking for something that's substantial to work on?
Yeah, I mean, I do know cinematographers who don't live in major cities. I think everybody is somewhat close to a major city. I know a guy that lives up in Cazenovia, New York, which is still 6 hours away from New York, and I have friends on the West Coast who live in San Luis Obispo and places that are 3 or 4 hours away from LA. And if you are not living in New York or LA or Chicago or New Orleans, having a way to quickly get to one of those places and be able to theoretically work locally, I think is pretty important. And, certainly there has been a major democratization of content and making things. So I don't think you necessarily need to be in either New York or LA in the same way that you might have had to be 30 years ago.
Right.
But it certainly helps to have friends on both coasts and work with people that are willing to give you a chance and fly you somewhere if the job calls for you to come.
And that's if you're chasing the job specifically. But I think if you're developing your own project, all bets are off, right? You can do what you want to do as long as you can figure out a way to distribute it, or like what is the goal when you're doing personal projects instead of chasing the job?
I mean, I gave up on that a long time. No, seriously, because
there you go, kids, give up.
I went to NYU for directing.
Okay.
But I swear to God, even as a first year student there, I was getting burned out by producing, directing, everything that is involved in making a short film while you're in film school. I did it. I did enough of them to graduate, but that's when I realized, I probably should stick with cinematography because I like to have the flexibility to bounce between projects, to not have to sit with a project and conceive it from the start. There are people that are excellent at that, and I love collaborating with those people, but I do like, as a cinematographer, being able to not necessarily just show up on the day, but to be slightly divorced from that full-on creation. So I know this is Coffee with Creators. I'm a creator of some kind, I think. But
no, you're a hired gun.
Yeah,
nothing that's being shown isn't going to be there unless you're making it happen. The way your camera movements, the way you're choosing about your lens, you're conferring with everybody on that set to get that look across. But we have to know how to do it. It's the craft, right? Yeah. And I'm the same as you. I was always like, I don't care. Just get me to a set. Whatever you need me to do, I should be able to do it. And that's the glory for me, is figuring out solutions to what's going on. Yeah. I don't need to have the responsibility of, it's my baby, it's my creation. Everybody that's on that set has to believe in what you're putting out there. You've got to find funding. You've got to tell, I don't think people realize what process goes into what you finally just binge watched in an afternoon. Yeah. Isn't that crazy how like all that goes into what we're putting out there? And it's like
a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of people, for sure. Yeah.
How do you feel about the speed of this era right now? I mean, I think like a season of something comes out and we talk about it for about 4 days. A bunch of YouTube videos come out about the review, and then we're on to the next thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm definitely a fan of the serialized model, the non-binge model, whether it's Severance or White Lotus.
You mean releasing it like a week?
Yeah. That still sort of jives with the way that I remember watching TV as a kid.
I
grew up on 24 and NYPD Blue and ER and stuff.
All shot here, by the way.
Yep. Yeah. And you know, I think binging is great. Still binge all the time. But I think there is a magic to these projects that sort of have a slower release, and in turn take longer to make, you know. Again, about Severance, 3 years in between those seasons. And I think by design that kind of worked for that show. But I mean, I'm overwhelmed by the speed that things come out. And at the same time, we were just talking about, like, I shot a project. I spent 2 years on it that hasn't come out yet, but hopefully it does. But, you know, there's both ends of the spectrum in terms of things needing to be ready to go, like right now, release tomorrow, burn the LUT into it, because it's going to be, you know, literally stuff as Met Gala next week, like that stuff has to have a turnover.
Yeah, we're almost live.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I also think there's something to having that breathing room. People live with the series. You know what I mean? Like, you talk about it with your friends. You have a chance to see someone between episodes and digest, get perspectives.
Yeah.
Do you mind if we talk about that 2-year project that you've been
Yeah, we can talk about it a little bit. Yeah.
So
for sure.
Can you mention who you were working with at all?
Yeah. So it's a project that Spike Lee is directing it, and it's called The Saga of Colin Kaepernick, and it's
pretty charged.
Yeah, very charged. But yeah, I mean, we shot from a technical perspective, and we can get into cameras in a moment.
We're totally going to get technical with what you just showed me. So hold tight, guys. I got a rig to show you guys that'll blow your brain out.
But yeah, I think we probably shot something like 200 hours of interviews on 3 cameras. So we're dealing with 600 hours of footage to digest for our DITs. But yeah, that was a project that we spent a very long time shooting, and timing, whatever, you know, it hasn't been released yet. And I don't think there's ever a guarantee that something that you make is going to be released. Not just this, but looking back on my entire career, there's a bunch of stuff that I'm super proud of that for whatever reason, didn't make it to the public view, and or it takes a long time, which is my hope for this project, at least.
So who owns the project in the end?
That I can't get into.
Okay.
But,
all right, cool. But some of the stuff that you've done that you're proud of that you say isn't coming out, do you not have the rights to put it out if you wanted to just throw it on Vimeo or YouTube?
That's a good question. So yeah, I mean, a lot of the times, what I'm specifically thinking about are commercial campaigns that maybe maybe visually it went a little too far for the company.
Okay.
I'm just thinking specifically about like a fashion film that I made for a fashion company that we shot the project. They saw it. I think the director and I were both really happy with it, but it just wasn't on brand for what they were looking for. We all got paid, but that never made it out. And you know, the problem is for something like that, yes, I would love to be able to put that on my website, put that on a reel. And at the end of the day, it just sort of comes down to having that conversation with whoever owns it. In that situation was the director, and they let me put that project into my reel, but sometimes it doesn't, and you never see the light of day after that.
Especially if it represents someone else's brand. You know,
like
you have to be careful about that kind of stuff. But what people I think take for granted is the relationships you build while you were doing the job. So I always tell people the job isn't the job; it's the interview for the next one. For sure, the audition for the next one. So just be glad you're out there doing it sometimes.
Yeah, and some of my favorite crew I met on these projects that didn't see the light of. I mean, we're talking commercials, but like there are features that I've shot that.
That's a lot.
No, it's happened. But as long as it was a good experience for the entire crew, certainly going to hire those folks down the line on something that hopefully the world can see. And you build a chemistry. You work more efficient the next time. You know, there's such little things you can't explain. Although Salvatore Dalia, sounds like a fake name, is asking, how is working with the legend Spike Lee?
Oh, I mean,
He's amazing.
Yeah.
It was a dream come true.
I'm sure you learned a bunch too, right?
I grew up watching his movies. I remember watching He Got Game probably when I was too young to watch it, in 98. And then
Do the right thing, man.
Yeah, I probably watched that a little bit later. The one that really stuck with me, 25th Hour, is one of my favorite movies. Having grown up in New York,
that one rant.
Around 9/11. Yeah.
The one rant. Everyone knows about that one rant.
The rant. Yep.
And it was so on. Like, if someone from New York, I was like, yep, there you go.
Yeah.
He was kind of speaking a lot of truth in that one. But that also was visually impactful, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Compared to a lot of his other stuff that wasn't so heavy on like the stylization, the style of that one.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, specifically that rant, like,
whoa.
First couple projects that I made when I was in high school, literally with my brother and our friend, when we had a ZR40, Canon ZR40.
Okay.
Totally, just pulling from movies that we were into at the time. Clockwork Orange, one of them, but 25th Hour, the FU rant
was wild.
Made it into those projects that we were doing. But even recently at NYU, I this semester at least, I'm trying this thing where once my students come back from making their second year films, which is a big project in your years at NYU, it's a semester where we kind of have fun in cinematography class. So so one of the techniques that we've been working on is Spike's double dolly shot.
Cool, man.
So we literally set up one that's based on the double dolly shot in 25th Hour, Anna Paquin moving through this club. But yeah, his work is still a major influence on me, and it was a dream come true working with him. And I hope the world can see that project at some point.
I hope I can see that project at some point. That sounds 200 hours. Do you sit there with a notebook, like making notes of like, make sure you go to this time because he said something's prolific there? Like, it's a lot of hours.
That's the editing team on that one. But I mean, there was a lot of work to do in terms of I mean, most of that is interviews, so it was a lot of making sure that visually we had consistency.
Right.
But yeah, no, I mean, getting into cameras, the FX9 was like a perfect camera for that, because it's got very similar color science to the Venice, and same size sensor as the Venice, but working with XAVCI files is going to be a lot easier when you have 600 hours of footage than working with, XOCN, XQ, or LT files.
You're talking to a mainly photographer channel. Why don't you quickly explain?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, so I'm sure everybody knows about RAW. There is a version of RAW in photography. Versus, I mean, if it's not RAW, are we talking JPEGs or
JPEG, TIFFs?
Yeah. So in moving pictures, we also have RAW, and the big difference between RAW and any of the compressed formats is the bit rate. So, or the bit depth. So in RAW, you're dealing with 16 bit, and that's literally the number of colors that can be recorded. So the sensor of the FX9 can record in 16-bit, but it can't internally record. And we're talking a trillion colors, something over a trillion colors for 16-bit.
Is bananas.
And if you just scale down to 12-bit, now we're talking about a range of, I think, 16 billion colors, which still gives you a lot of room to grade.
Yeah, I think so.
But the files are going to be minuscule compared to that. So for that project and most documentaries that I shoot, we're usually shooting in 10 or 12-bit rather than shooting in RAW. Which, yes, it's not going to give you as much latitude when you get to the grade, but it's 10 or 12-bit for most of what I'm doing is going to be totally fine.
That's if you need the latitude. Also, if you're on exposure, if you've like, people don't realize that, like, yes, you have all the information, but if you're not using all the information, you're going to have the hardest time editing.
Right.
Your machine's going to get bogged up. Your storage, forget about it. Right.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what 200 hours of 16 bits would be as far as storage goes. It's like ridiculous.
Yeah.
But I think, especially when you're doing something documentary, you want to be light. You want to be able to get into smaller spaces. You want to be able to be basically anywhere and just be able to throw down
for sure
and get going, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and you've got to be pretty nimble on a documentary because you're basically capturing what's in front of you rather than blocking out an actor or
Right.
planning a shot or spending the whole half a day planning out like a oneer, right?
No, and that's why I'm a huge. I mean, we were just talking about this. I love Aries digital cameras. I love the Alexa. I love the Alexa 35 now that it's out. However, for a lot of the work that I do, Sony has been an amazing fit because of this whole Cine Alta line from the FX30 up to the Venice 2. So, you know, some examples of the ways that I've used it for shooting a doc that we did actually purchase those 3 FX9s because we had to be ready to shoot on a whim rather than going through a rental house. FX9s were perfect for that project. I have an FX6 at home that I use for something like next week where just have to fly in with a camera for the Met Gala. Also captures really beautiful home videos of my son. But then, you know, in between that, we've got the Venice, which is great for narrative. And then we got the Burano, which came out, I think, about a year ago. So I've been using the Burano a lot this past year on a project. Yeah, we can pull up the picture of this. So this is for a museum that's opening up in DC this summer. And so basically at this museum, you enter, and the first thing that you experience is this immersive theater where you watch essentially an orientation film. And it's an immersive theater because at the front of the room, there is a 15 by 30 front screen. On the sides, you have 15 by 45 foot long screens. And then on the top, you have a 30 by 45 foot LED wall. And so for this project, not every moment is immersive. So sometimes the top screen and the sides are going to be black, but the moments where we go into the immersive view, we needed to shoot with 4 cameras at once. And
built a 360 camera.
We built a 270. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'll let you go.
So yeah, you got. If you take a look, so that's what it looks like when we're viewing it on this rig of small HD cameras all rigged together. But that's what the actual camera looks like. So it's a Sony Burano in the center,
right here,
shooting 8.6K XOCN LT. So that's like a slightly lighter version of RAW, because that has to be at a higher resolution. That's a 6K LED screen at the front of the room. The sides can be slightly less resolution because those are actually projections. So there's 2 projectors projecting these 45 foot long images. So we shoot those in 4K with FX3s. And then the top screen, if it has to be immersive, we shoot it with an FX3, but a lot of the time we end up just pointing our Burano up 190 degrees to get the resolution we need for that screen.
So what are you doing for lenses to get this overlap?
That's a great question. So we predominantly use the Sony G Master lenses. So we also do interviews in this immersive view, and maybe we'll throw like a Cooke SP3 on for the actual frontal shot of the subject. But for the majority of this, we have a 24-70 in front. We have 16 to 35 mil lenses on the sides, and then a 11 to 24 mil lens looking up, because we have the same size sensor on all of these cameras. But as you can see, if you go back to that picture in DC, the side cameras are 2/3 longer than the front camera, and 3 of the front cameras can fit on the ceiling. So we're working with sensor sizes that have to be compensated with focal lengths.
Okay.
So if I'm shooting the front shot with a 32 mil, I did the math for this, but I need 16 mils on either side. I need twice the focal length to span that. And then I need
You're talking
3
about crop
times
factor? Is that what you're talking about?
it is a little bit of crop factor. Yeah. But we're using all these in full frame. but as you can see there, the actual screens on the sides are 3 times longer than they are tall. So that's why we need wider focal lengths. And then the top screen, because it's gigantic, again, it's 3 times larger than the front screen. We need to go with as wide a focal length as we can get, which is 11 mil on.
So when you change into a Cook lens, and those traditionally tend to shoot warmer, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Do you deal with a lot of balance issues, or?
Well, a major balance thing that we have to deal with on this is that although the FX3 and the Burano are all in the Cine Alta family, there are major differences between the warmth of those sensors, the Burano versus the FX3s. So we do a lot of, and again, this is, I worked all this out when we were prepping for this job, but we figured out that the FX3s, we needed to warm up by about 400 degrees comparatively to the middle camera.
It's not too crazy.
No, I've dealt with a lot worse in terms of groups of lenses, but luckily the thing is with the G Master lenses, in terms of warmth and tint, they all match really well. It's the sensors that we've had issues with. But at the end of the day, it's all in S-Log3. Sony's color space is uniformed across all of these cameras, which is great. And we're in post right now. I'm dealing with the colorist, and I think it's going well. But yeah, figuring out things like that, the difference in terms of the color temperature on the sensor was a big part of this.
And it saves you a lot on the back end. You're not sitting there trying to figure out that one for that one. You get it on the field. You're like in the field rather.
For sure.
That's what's up. So how do you compile this together? Like, what is the actual aftermath to get a 270 view to come together?
We send it to our editors, and because this theater isn't it's still under construction. It's opening this summer. We have been previewing the cuts in MetaQuest. So we go into VR. Yeah. So it's not like being at the Sphere in Vegas. Like, there are gaps between the screens, so we don't need to literally stitch things together.
Right.
Which gives us a little bit of flexibility. But when you get into the Quest, you feel like you're sitting in this theater that has this big screen in front of you, big screens on the side, and then a gigantic screen on the ceiling.
How'd that feel the first time you put on the Quest and it worked? How did that feel?
Good. It was great. Yeah. I mean, it was a test that we had done, and to see that the test was working, but it still took several iterations to realize how wide we had to go. This is from one of our tests. And I think we didn't realize how wide we had to go even with that top camera when we were shooting this test. I hadn't done all that math yet, but
it's involved, but it must have been fun to figure out though.
It's so much fun. It's so much fun. I have always been interested in math and architecture, engineering, that type of thing. And
nerd.
Yeah, I'll admit it. And anytime that I can get more technical, and maybe that's also why I stopped directing, because I was more interested with these technical questions.
Forget about sometimes, like, the technical is why you got into it a little bit.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's like just using the tool, getting the thing that you wanted to have happen. It's not about the creative so much. It's about the end, like getting to us. I always look at it like equations.
Yeah.
Right. Like, we need this to happen. So what's going to get me there, kind of thing. There's what would be the advice you'd give someone? Oops, I'm clicking the wrong. I got 14 screens here. Hold on. What would be the advice you'd give someone with no experience that wants to get into filmmaking?
That's a good question.
Go film, bro. I mean, not for nothing. If you got nothing, start filming on your phone and start figuring out what you can figure out.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, everybody has a camera. I know I'm not the first person to say this, but everybody that has a smartphone has a camera in their pocket that can make beautiful images. You were just telling me that 28 years later, shot on iPhone, but
Crazy.
Going back even now a decade ago, Sean Baker, who just won for Adorama, he did Tangerine on iPhones, and I don't think that that's the only factor, having a camera. You also have to have a story that you want to make, and obviously have an outlet to show that story. But I think as long as you have the drive to do it, it can be done.
Yeah.
That's really what it breaks down to
You
for
got to
me.
find something you care about, and then find something
sure.
you care about telling. You know what I mean?
sure.
It's really interesting when you see like these amazing directors or DPs or whatever, and then when you see their personal projects, it's completely on the left from whatever they were actually known for, because that's what they actually cared about putting out there.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what's so cool about the era we're in. Like, you can go shop it to whatever platform, or if not, you can build your own platform now.
Yeah.
So when I was growing up, like, you were shooting and your shots went into a shoebox. You had nowhere to put this stuff. No one was looking at it. Now
That's true.
You can put it out there.
Yeah.
At least it's out there. You know what I mean? I think you can't just go get started. That's what I was just speaking.
Yeah. And, you know, I think there's, this is even slightly dated, but the fact that there are outlets like New York Times OpDocs, where you literally, you know, I said I don't direct anymore. Slight caveat to that. Like, a couple years ago, I made a documentary about my dad, who's now a retired music teacher. So while I was at film school, I had made a documentary about him. He's eccentric and but very passionate about his work. So I just made sort of a short exercise about him. Then he retired in 2022. And as a gift to him, I made basically a sequel to this documentary. It's on my website. I had an FX6 at home, and I had DaVinci on my computer. And for literally zero money, I was able to make a short documentary that, if it wasn't so personal, I would have considered shopping it out. And platforms, though, like New York Times OpDocs, obviously Vimeo staff picks, there are ways to get your small projects seen by many, many people at this point.
And the projects have to exist. So you know what you got to do? Go put in some work a little bit. You know what I mean? But if you really care about it, you're going to be sweating, and it's going to be long or whatever, but it doesn't feel like you're putting on a tie to go sit at a cubicle, right? You know, you're doing it, you know. Look, I'm the first one to be like, I'm tired, I don't want to do anything. But like, we're very lucky to even have this as an option in life to do things. You know what I mean?
No doubt about it.
I mean, is there anybody in this chat that's more on the cinema video side of things? I know there's we've got a lot of photographers. I know Jennifer Maloney. I know you're a photographer. Brad McMillan's asking if you had a chance to shoot with an IMAX camera. No,
I haven't shot IMAX. I've shot with the larger format Alexas, the Alexa 65, and the 265 is out now. But I have not shot literal IMAX 70 millimeter.
I think some challenges would be as you go up in format like that. What challenges do you find?
I mean, shooting on film, I love to do it. I don't do it enough. But anything regarding shooting film versus digital is just a much, much more consuming process, in terms of you need to have a camera department that is experienced with it, between having a loader, having a first AC that can pull off of actual marks rather than just off of a video signal. And the larger the format of the film gets, the more complex it gets. Absolutely. For sure.
Yeah. And then then we're talking, I think, aspect ratio plays so much of a role in the viewer's experience. I think, even in stills, you're shooting 16:9 automatically. You feel differently than if you were shooting square or something like that. So what are some of the first choices you make when you find a creative project that you're into? What's some of the first decisions you make when you're going for the look?
Yeah, I mean, from an aspect ratio standpoint, in the past several years, 9:16 has become a thing. And for that, if I know that something is if I'm shooting something that's branded content that I know is literally going to end up on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, whatever.
So you're talking vertical.
Yeah, I will absolutely mount my camera vertically so that we're not cropping out.
Does your heart die a little bit when you do that? There's some guys that are like, never.
No, I mean, I'd rather shoot it like that than have the image cropped and lose all that good stuff. So yes, depending on where the final project is going to be viewed, that dictates a lot of the aspect ratio. But in terms of,
what are your first decisions when you're going after a look on a film? Is it the color? Do you think of color grading and go, I'm going to go?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a big proponent of having LUTs ready to go.
My heart dies when I'm dealing with 9 by.
Yeah.
Guys
No.
are like never vertical.
Yeah.
Bring back horizontal video or whatever.
Yeah.
In that camp, do you hate vertical?
At this point, if it's a job, I will certainly consider it, but it's better to know that it's going to be 9:16 than to hear, oh, it's got to work in both 16:9 and 9:16.
You got to crop between them and stuff.
Oh, then I'm going to say we got to do 2 different takes of every shot, but which has happened before. But yeah, I mean, in terms of developing a look, I think at this point, lenses is more important than the sensor. All of the sensors that I'm working with, whether it's one of these Sony Cinealta models or the Alexa, or very, very rarely, but I do sometimes have to shoot on red. All these sensors look the same at this point after color grading it. So the first consideration that I'm going to take from an aesthetic standpoint is most likely going to be lenses.
Okay. So
much personality between different sets of lenses. So that's probably going to be the first conversation that I have. And then if we're trying to develop a look beyond that, I have an entire encyclopedia of LUTs on my home computer that work on every one of these cameras. And if we have the pre-pro to be able to take a look at a bunch of different LUTs, I will definitely offer that to my directors so that we can see something on set that's not just Rec 709 that is going to go for the look that they will ultimately get from the colorist.
Yeah, I think people, this is a personal opinion, but I think a lot of people rest way too much on a color grade to get it over the goal line as far as impact goes. Because I think a color grade can be very surreal, and then you're very separated as a viewer, or it could totally change the color theory to further narrative. So like when you watch something like Dahmer on Netflix, that color grading was so crucial to what they were trying to make you feel in every, it was warm and dingy when you went to his apartment. Then the hallway felt neutral, so you felt like you were okay once you were out there.
Yeah.
That's using it as a tool. Some people, I think, just like, nah, give me that Joker thing where it's kind of blue.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Teal and orange, yeah. Well, I mean, I'll say this, going back to that question of what can you do if you have zero experience and you're trying to become a cinematographer or even a director. Learning how to color grade is so important. Mm-hmm. I talk about this with my students. Unless you can afford a colorist, and at this point, with the democratization of everything, it's easier to find a colorist now than it ever was. And unfortunately, this is leading to things like companies like Technicolor folding. But, if you can't afford to go to Harbor, you can't afford to go to Company 3, knowing how to color so that as the cinematographer, you have final say over the look is so important. And you can literally learn how to use DaVinci on YouTube.
It's free to start.
It's free. Yeah.
It's crazy.
I still use DaVinci Lite on my computer, and I've got a bunch of plugins, but it's really, really important. I'm not going to say it's as important as the decisions you make on set. Those are always going to be more important, but huge part of this entire thing is knowing how to color and what control you have.
I mean, having all that control over the look, do you feel you're ever brushing against taking over from director? Like sometimes?
No. I mean, again, that's why I want to get the director involved as early as possible in terms of what our LUT on set is going to be like. So I can say, this is how we could go with it. Let's pick something that is not so wild that it's going to distract people, like you're saying with the look of Dahmer. But again, I have this set of LUTs that are all sort of aesthetically pleasing and a little bit more elevated than just Rec 709, and being able to show a director what something looks like just a little bit elevated is really important.
Yeah, and you've got to work close with guys like me that got to get all the lighting going. So, I mean, what's that like when you're having a discussion where it's just kind of like, we're going for this, but you're talking to someone that's talking in lighting terms. You're talking as far as like what's being funneled into that camera as a final look. Do you find that over the years you've had to learn on the lighting side to
I'm super passionate about lighting. I mean, I gaffed for several years.
I think everybody should gaff.
Yeah. I certainly gaffed in film school, but then after I graduated from NYU, I moved to LA. Didn't know anybody there, and I started from scratch when I moved out there, gaffing music videos literally for $100 a day, and eventually I was able to get shooting work out in LA. But I am very passionate about not necessarily, sure, the lights are super important, but even knowing how to control lighting is up there. Certainly up there with the lenses that you're choosing and the compositions and of course the camera.
Yeah, and all that bit rate means nothing if you're not getting the light.
Oh, absolutely,
it's crazy.
absolutely.
Early LEDs, remember how horrible early LEDs were?
Yeah,
and now it's like
major improvements. Yeah,
what is an LED?
For me, a big moment in terms of accepting LED, because when I was gaffing 2015, yes, there were LED units, but you were still renting M18s, Kinos,
T5s,
Yeah. But then I think it was Phantom Thread. So Paul Thomas Anderson had been working with his DP for many years, and then he decided to shoot that film himself, and still collaborating with a lighting director, a set lighting director. I can't remember what they call it in the UK, and a camera operator. But on that film, which they shot on 35 mil, they lit everything with LEDs on that. So they're still going for a period look on that, but incorporating LED technology. And it was mostly light mats and
it's crazy.
LED blankets have, even since 2015, 2017, whenever that came out, have made a huge, made big improvements, but light tile at that time was a huge deal. And yeah, I mean, every there's so many companies making LEDs now. I still try to stick with the ones that I know.
Yeah.
Whether it's Lightgear, Aperture.
You also want to be familiar with what's available in rental houses. Like you want
Right.
to be, you just want to know what tools you have on you where you go somewhere. But I mean, look, Kubrick, man, look at Barry Lyndon, shot that in candlelight with NASA lenses that were so shallow.
Yeah.
But that was the look.
Yeah.
Was it?
0.7. Yeah.
Bananas. Like,
but I'm a huge fan of Barry Lyndon and all of Kubrick's stuff. So they, what I love about that movie is that there are these massive interior day scenes that they definitely used huge tungsten units out the window, because there's windows that don't have a unit pumping through them in frame that are super blue. Then you have the uncorrected tungsten light coming through, warming up the entire room. I'm a huge fan of mixing color temperatures, and not that it has to be right. You can always justify a mix of color temperatures, but that's like some Barry Lyndon, definitely major influence when it comes to working with limitations like we need to be able to shoot at a 0.7 with candlelight.
He bought them from NASA.
He bought
those lenses from that. Listen, it's not a movie for everyone. It's a little slow for some people, but it's a really good watch.
Yeah.
You like just visuals, sometimes just putting it on the background. First of all, I mean, Kubrick's attention to detail. If you watch The Shining alone, the stuff that happened in that movie, the way the hotel was laid out, you don't even realize was like off-putting and making your brain a little weird. Like it's just, I could go on about Kubrick forever. But so having said that, you're a teacher at NYU.
Yeah.
What are some films you recommend to any student that's like, where should I get going as far as what I want to get a good foundation of, like, legacy filmmaking?
That's a good question. It's funny because I got to think about that from a cinematography perspective, rather than a directing perspective.
That's a good point, though.
And the funny thing is that based on the classes that I teach, I don't tell people to go watch entire films. In class, we watch tons of clips. But that's a really good question. I think in terms of movies that have come out in the past decade or two that I think are really important to understand from sort of a technical standpoint, Moonlight is huge.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Barry Jenkins, James Laxton, you know, in terms of they shot that on the Alexa with anamorphic lenses, and it not that anamorphic is sort of a fad. However,
It's everywhere
that
now.
and that's great too, though, the democratization of being able to. There's companies like Atlas and Dizzo that are making affordable
small
anamorphic
anamorphics.
lenses. But in terms of setting the tone for a look that then you saw everywhere, that was a big one, Moonlight, for me.
Yeah. Okay.
And, you know, I'm a huge fan of Paul Thomas Anderson. I always show the opening scene of There Will Be Blood, just because I think it's at NYU, you have this assignment when you're a first year where you need to make a 4-minute silent exterior film.
Okay.
On film. And I always show the first 4 minutes of There Will Be Blood as an example of literally a silent
Great film.
exterior film. It's basically everything from Daniel Day-Lewis's character is mining for gold, and he has an accident and he breaks his leg and he has to literally climb out of this cave that he's in. And just in terms of from a storytelling perspective and using shot progression, it's an amazing scene. So yeah, There Will Be Blood, Moonlight. I'm sure there's others, but I love showing specific scenes and breaking it down from a shot listing perspective, from a progression perspective. That's definitely a big part of what I like to teach.
I think that's a good way to look at it, is that, well, am I looking at from a director perspective, a DP perspective? Am I looking from light perspective? Like, why?
Both.
Right? It's kind of nuts, right? How and specific scenes in movies. Not every movie is shot all the same, but I think we both agree, right? One of the greatest of all time, being a New Yorker, The Professional.
Yeah.
I mean, I must have watched that so much, and then I look back at how I shot in my early career. I'm like, oh my God, like I didn't realize I was emulating and mimicking. And I think that's what happens on set too. You're like, you start getting to things that feel right. It's because you watch something that's in the back of your skull. It's like a mood board for everything you're doing. I just always leave things playing when I'm home. I always had in my darkroom, I always played Tombstone. And I could see that whole movie in my head just from the audio, but having impact. We're talking about movies from like decades ago. Yeah. That still you could see in your head to this day. That's amazing.
Huge one for me that I should have mentioned, because I make sure I show it every semester, but A Serious Man, Coen Brothers. Obviously everything that they do is incredible from a shot listing, shot progression perspective. Their work with Roger Deakins is one of the best collaborators.
Roger Deakins. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. But the way from a cultural standpoint, that movie is big with me, having had a bar mitzvah.
I had a bar mitzvah.
Yeah. And but it's such a simple it's such a simple movie in terms of it's character driven, it's comedy, it's drama. It doesn't have as big set pieces as No Country did, which came out 2 years before that. It's a simple movie in terms of you can sort of wrap your head around the scope of it. But then you start looking at it from a shooting perspective, both in terms of you watch it for lighting and the work that Deakins is doing, but also for shot progression and even the editing. It's just, to me, it's a flawless movie that I can study over and over again.
That one kind of came and went. I feel like no one ever brings it up.
Yeah.
And for you to call flawless, it's just amazing what perspectives it takes to really have a film have an impact on you.
Oh, it's,
it's kind of crazy. No Country for Old Men. That really hit me, that film. That was unreal. And then I don't know if you knew about this whole thing, but like the theories that came out afterwards, like, oh, he was never real. Like Bob Sugar was never actually a thing. He didn't exist. I was like, wait, what? And then you watching it like, no way. Like all these conspiracy theories going on in your head. But I mean, I think we all look for things deeper now, especially with the universal conversation. So I was just saying to him, like, you watch a movie, you watch a trailer, you go on to YouTube, you got someone dissecting a minute-long trailer for 30 minutes about every little frame.
Yeah.
As a DP, as someone making this stuff, is that more stress on you when you think people are really, really ripping things apart on a deeper level now?
I hope they are. No, I mean, that's thrilling to think about. I mean, I do the same thing. I was yesterday, the trailer for Benny Safdie's new movie came out, and I watched it about 10 times because I was like, it's going to be a while before this comes out in theaters and I can see it, but I want to start understanding this from a shot by shot perspective, just because I love that filmmaker. And but no, I think if anybody is watching my work with that fine tooth comb, something like that.
Yeah,
that's thrilling. That's the whole point.
That's interesting. That's a cool way to look at it. 'Cause I feel like some people would just be like, it would get in their head. They'd be like, why are they going through all this? I didn't mean to do it like that or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel like that's interesting that you lean into it. That's kind of cool. I mean, do you ever give that to your students at NOE? Like don't ever underestimate, like, someone's going to watch this completely differently than you shot it.
Yes, that's definitely a conversation. And, it's the old saying that a movie gets written 3 times: when it's written, when you shoot it, in the edit. And I think that extends to 4 times when the audience watches it and has their own interpretations of it. But yeah, you have to keep in mind, narrative films specifically, that the audience is going to be bringing their own perspective to it. And the more worlds and more perspectives that one film can actually elicit to people, I think the better a film it is. How
are you feeling? And I got to bring this up because now I'm really curious what you think on it. AI. We got a lot of AI coming into filmmaking. We're seeing a lot of like completely AI films trying to get over the goal. I'm in the camp of, if you don't want it, don't buy the ticket. It won't. Yeah. It won't. It's all about, in the end, this is a business, right? It's an industry. Yeah. How do you feel? Do you feel it could elevate what you're doing, especially with the 270 camera?
Yeah.
Do you feel it could help you there? Do you feel that there's something?
Point. I mean, I am not personally using AI for anything right now. I know there are DPs that do use it to literally develop mood boards and pre-visualization. Then there's, of course, the examples of it being used in films that have come out this past year. I think what was it? They corrected Adrian Brody's accent in The Brutalist using AI. But no, I definitely see some usage for it if we're talking about being able to generate a crowd in a scene that you can't get enough extras for. Sure, that's fine. But I would hope that it's not being used in ways that are taking away people's jobs.
No, I think it's going to be kind of slapped over CGI. I think if there's CGI going on there, that's where it gets perpetuated. But I mean, to have actual like fake camera movements, have fake scenes, that's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Do you feel that there's going to be a period of it like coming in as a fad and then might die out? Like, where do you think it'll be kind of coming around?
I mean, I think I hope we're in the middle of that fad right now, and it's going to slow down, or it becomes a tool that we can all use rather than it replacing anybody.
Yeah.
But earlier this, what was it? Coca-Cola commercial came out in December. It was like their annual Christmas commercial that they used to shoot, then it became CGI, and this year they did a fully AI version. It looked terrible. It just looked wrong.
But it'll keep getting better. That's
right. Sure, it's going to get better. But my hope would be that AI is used as a tool, just like CGI is now used, that will elevate the product without replacing any human beings. But I mean that's kind of the whole point of AI, right?
That's kind of, I'm hoping that it helps make things cheaper and faster, right? So like DaVinci uses so much AI now.
Right.
And it gives you a lot of tools that you couldn't have had. If you're someone that's not going to afford, for example, just bad example, like someone that's not going to afford a stabilizer for their camera, but it can AI stabilize, or noise cleanup, or caption. help out any kind of thing like that. Other than that, I don't want to see. I want to see what people create.
Right.
I want to see that. Like I don't know where you guys are at in the. If you would go buy a ticket to an AI movie, I'm just like I'm good.
Yeah. I think that's a great point though about DaVinci being used in a effective way that I would use it for any of those. I know that the betas are coming out all the time for DaVinci, and their stabilization's always getting better. Now they have options for literally relighting in DaVinci. Everything.
What? Like
I know. So yeah, AI in terms of cleanup, sure.
Yeah.
I'm down with that. It's really the actual generating of the content that I hope doesn't get replaced anytime soon.
I'm glad to hear you say it because you're shaping the future minds. You're in the industry right now. I have a hope for that. Guys, if you want, make sure if you're watching this playback, drop a comment down below if you guys want to ask Ben anything. You can go check out those comments at your leisure.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to check out his Instagram here. Go to his website, see all the clips if you're interested like that. And if you're really into cinema, Adorama has a cinema channel now. Adorama Cinema is the new channel. I'm going to drag this guy on. I'm going to put him to work. Hopefully we'll get you in here, do some cool stuff. Maybe we'll see you at Adorama Rentals.
Yeah.
Brooklyn, which you are right by. So
I love that place. Yeah.
So if you guys want, if you're interested in anything cinema related, we've got you covered from the Adorama Cinema channel, Adorama Rentals, and right here at the event space, 42 West 18th Street. Today, they're doing an HP print event. So that's why people are gathering behind us here and there. So if you are in the city today and you want to come by with a memory card to get some prints made, come by 42 West 18th Street. Yo, it's great meeting you, man.
Thank you so much for having me, Seth.
Thank you, man. And you're welcome here anytime. Hopefully I can get you some classes like in here. I'd be really psyched to get you in here.
Yeah.
Totally cool. And thanks to Sony for sponsoring this. Go check out his rig on the 270-degree camera.
Yeah.
The Burano is kind of...
in a couple months, you'll be able to see that in its actuality down in DC.
That's cool. Follow my man so you make sure that you don't miss out on what's actually coming out of that. If you got a Meta Quest, I'm sure you're going to be all over that thing. I can only imagine the first time you guys put that on, you're like, oh, it worked.
No, it was great. It was great.
Guys, we'll see you on the next one. Hit subscribe. If you're new here, there's 50 other episodes of Call for Creators. And I will see you on the Adorama Events channel for the live stream. So that's this channel, Adorama Events, Adorama Cinema. We'll see you on something. Guys, have a great rest of your week, and I will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.